Good afternoon. I'm Kathy Chase, President of Advocates for Highway and Auto Safety, also known as Advocates. Thank you so much for joining us today. I have some housekeeping remarks before we start. Please be sure to keep yourself muted. The event is being recorded and is on the record. The recording will be made available on our website, saferoads.org. If you have a question for our speakers and you're a member of the media, please send a direct message using the chat to Tara Gill, our Senior Director of Advocacy and State Legislation. We will hold all questions until the conclusion of prepared remarks. If you're interested in scheduling an interview with any of the speakers, please send a direct message to our Communications Director, Pete Daniels, who has also put his email address in the chat. For those of you who may be unfamiliar with Advocates, we are an alliance of consumer, medical, public health, law enforcement, and safety groups, and insurance companies and agents. Our mission is to advance federal and state laws and policies which promote safe drivers and road users, safe roadways, and safe vehicles. Over the last year and a half, the pandemic upended any sense of normalcy. This included on our roadways, as was recently confirmed by preliminary motor vehicle crash figures for 2020 from the U.S. Department of Transportation. Although our roads were emptier, crash fatalities went up. 36,860 people were killed on our roadways. This is a 7% increase from 2019 and the largest projected number of traffic fatalities since 2007. The main causes for this uptick were people driving while impaired, drivers speeding, and motorists not wearing their seatbelts. These factors created a perfect storm, if you will, for causing preventable deaths on our roadways at a time when first responders and healthcare workers were already pushed beyond their limits. It also meant grief and hardship for many families at a time when many were already suffering from mental and physical health challenges, as well as financial adversities. We were compelled to hold this event today because all of these issues are solvable problems. What is needed is leadership to advance proven solutions. Tomorrow, the Senate Commerce, Science, and Transportation Committee will hold a very important hearing on its bill called the Surface Transportation Investment Act of 2021, or S-2016. While the legislation includes some improvements, it does not meet the moment. It does not include numerous advances, which have been proven to make our roads safer for all road users, including requiring automatic emergency braking, or AEB, for all new cars and trucks by a date certain. This technology would mitigate or prevent crashes caused by many of the dangerous and deadly behaviors on our roads: distracted driving, drunk driving, drowsy driving, and drugged driving by car and truck drivers. The Insurance Institute for Highway Safety, or IIHS, has demonstrated forward collision warning with auto brake could reduce front to rear car crashes by 50% and front to rear large truck crashes by 40%. Additionally, the National Transportation Safety Board, or NTSB, has called for this technology in all vehicles. Yet this and other safety requirements for cars and trucks landed on the committee's cutting room floor. Members of the auto industry upcharge for safety technology, placing the safest brakes and other safety systems outside the budget of many families. And segments of the trucking industry don't want to pay for relatively small price increases to equip new small to medium-sized trucks with the safest brakes. The Senate Commerce Committee could right this wrong tomorrow. Worse yet, current longstanding safety protections are under attack. Federal law wisely requires a minimum age of 21 for interstate truck drivers. Yet segments of the trucking industry want to address the self-inflicted driver retention issue by pulling teens from high school hallways to put them on high-speed interstate highways. Another special interest carve-out is for haulers of livestock and agricultural commodities who already have an exemption from complying with the hours of service rules that govern driving hours under certain conditions. Expanding this exemption to illogical lengths will further exacerbate the deadly epidemic of driver fatigue. Plain and simple, these must be rejected or all road users will be further endangered. We created a safety spotlight chart which conveys our opposition to these safety threats and support for needed improvements. Nearly 20 consumer, disability rights, traffic safety, bicyclist, public health, and child safety stakeholders join us in this effort, and the chart can be found on our website, saferoads.org. In addition to action in the Senate, in the next couple of weeks, the House of Representatives will be debating and voting on its 5-year transportation bill, which also has some safety improvements, but falls short of what is needed to significantly reduce crashes. We are continuing to urge all members of the House to step up and advance proven solutions. Today's speakers will be calling on Congress to not just talk the talk and say that safety is its #1 priority, but rather to walk the walk and legislate for common sense needed safety improvements to stop the tens of thousands of needless deaths and millions of needless injuries from preventable crashes happening year after year after year on our roadways. I would now like to introduce Senator Richard Blumenthal from Connecticut, who is here with us today to fight for needed changes. Senator Blumenthal is a tireless safety advocate and consumer rights leader who has been pushing for numerous safety initiatives. Thank you so much, Senator, for joining us today and for your never-ending leadership.
Thank you, Kathy, and thank you so much for bringing us together today. I really welcome and thank the other advocates on this call, as well as the labor leaders, and most important, the families who have lost loved ones and other victims. They are the ones in Connecticut who really rivet my attention on this issue. As we consider this surface transportation reauthorization, what we're seeing is an opportunity for progress, but also we are seeing a full frontal assault on driver safety by special interests that are using the economic downturn as an excuse for degrading auto and driver safety. It is a stark, absolutely stunning assault on principles and progress already made. For example, requirements for rest due to drivers of trucks. What they want to do is extend the amount of driving to 18 hours over a 24-hour period. Driver fatigue in trucks is a danger not only to them, but to everybody else on the road. And the victims are present on this call and in our communities. Likewise, they want to put 18-year-olds behind the wheel of a rig. That's a recipe for disaster. On Connecticut's roads and any other roads, we need to make sure that drivers are over 21 years old when they're behind one of these multi-ton rigs. So these amendments proposed by colleagues right now may well have enough votes to win. I am not crying wolf. There is a distinct, clear, urgent danger that measures degrading driver and road safety will pass. And I really welcome the support for our opposition to them. I'll be offering amendments to change them and reduce their effect. But right now, we face a really great danger of their passing. I also want to mention two possible areas of progress. Keyless ignition rollaways have long been a clear threat, as you know, to life and health and safety. In the last decade alone, NHTSA has opened 18 investigations and automakers have launched 93 recalls related to automobile rollaways. The agency is clearly aware of the problem. It announced a notice of proposed rulemaking in 2011, but it has simply done nothing while the deaths continue to accumulate. We've seen victims of keyless ignition rollaways in Connecticut. My guess is every state has seen these kind of needless tragedies, which can be prevented through proper action by the industry. And second, let me mention as well used car safety recalls. There is simply no excuse why used cars can be sold when under recall without repairs. We need to close that loophole and make sure that leased as well as new cars are covered by the prohibition of sale or profit while they're under recall without repair. They put drivers in danger. And of course, in many instances, the drivers either buying or renting cars have no idea that the car may pose a hazard. So thank you again to all of you for being on this call. We're going to fight like the devil to make sure that we uphold these principles of auto and truck safety. And I know that I am to be followed by my great friend and colleague, Ed Markey, who has been such a wonderful partner in many of these efforts. And we're going to be fighting vociferously and vehemently against this frontal assault on safety. It's nothing less than a real challenge to the progress that we've made so far. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much, Senator. We are so grateful for your leadership again, and thankful that you and Senator Markey are members of the Commerce Committee. I would now like to share a recorded message from Senator Ed Markey of Massachusetts, who works together with Senator Blumenthal on numerous auto safety issues we are urging Congress to enact today. Senator Markey has been a steadfast champion for consumer rights and efforts to end the horrific toll of motor vehicle crashes. We are grateful for his leadership on these issues and are working closely with him to see that they are addressed in this legislation.
Hi, I'm Senator Ed Markey, Senator from Massachusetts. Thank you to the safety leaders who have organized this event. I'm honored to join my colleague, Senator Blumenthal, as well as champions like Joan Clayburgh, Kathy Chase, Jason Levine, and more, because in speaking about the need to improve the surface transportation reauthorization legislation pending before the Senate Commerce Committee, we have to talk about safety. Our committee is in charge of crafting the all-important safety title in this 5-year transportation package. That means we must seize this opportunity to ensure the next 5 years finally see an end to the decades-long public health crisis on our roads. Every year, on average, motor vehicle accidents kill more than 36,000 people and injure nearly 3 million more. We cannot accept these tragedies as inevitable. Instead, we must immediately implement proven strategies and technologies that can save countless lives moving forward. Thankfully, there are some important reforms already included in the Commerce Committee's Surface Transportation Bill, including versions of our 4 auto safety bills I introduced with Senator Blumenthal to collectively address the threats of seatback failure, distracted driving, ineffective recalls, and insufficient oversight of the auto industry. However, we still need to do so much more before this bill becomes law. We must not only improve what is already included, but also add in provisions to address neglected challenges and transform our transportation system. At the same time, we must stop any dangerous proposals that could undermine the rules we already have on the books. So our fight is far from over. As this bill moves through the Senate and is conference with the House, I look forward to working with everyone here to make sure that safety is finally at the forefront of our transportation system. I can't thank Senator Blumenthal enough for his great leadership, to Joan Clayburgh, to all of the advocates who are having a moment where we think big and bold about the safety we can provide to every American on the road. Thank you all so much for everything that you're doing.
Thank you to Senator Markey and to his staff for providing that video. We are just so grateful for all of his safety and consumer rights leadership. I'd now like to introduce Norm Collins, an advocate with the organization Kids and Car Safety, to talk about the issue of children left unknowingly in a car or climbing into one without anyone knowing, referred to as the hot cars issue. Legislation has been introduced since the early 2000s, which directs the U.S. Department of Transportation to issue a rule requiring new cars to be equipped with technology to detect and alert to the presence of an unattended child in a car. On our website, saferoads.org, you can find a short video with examples of this technology in action. With the strains of the pandemic hopefully beginning to ease, routines will change for many. This, combined with hot summer weather, will bring an increased risk for hot car deaths. In fact, in just this last week, 2 more children died in hot cars. A 2-year-old boy from Iberia Parish, Louisiana, and a 9-month-old baby in Pace, Florida. Our cars warn us when the lights are left on and if the trunk is open, among many other reminders. It is time to end the suffering of families losing children in preventable hot cars with technology. Norm, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you. May 29th, 2011 is a date that is etched in the hearts of me and my family forever. I received a phone call from a church friend who informed me that I needed to come to Clarksdale, Mississippi right away because something had happened to my 3-month-old grandson, Norman Collins III, who was affectionately known as Bishop. I later learned that Bishop was dead, the victim of heat stroke after being unknowingly left in his parents' hot car in a church parking lot on a 93-degree Sunday afternoon due to a miscommunication. The daily horror my family encounters at the thought of Bishop being buckled in his seat, crying relentlessly, sweating profusely, seizing uncontrollably, and extending his little arms for help with no one to attend to him. At times, it is simply too much to bear for any human. Yes, Bishop's death was tragic and unintentional. It was the result of a simple misunderstanding between my son and a church friend who didn't hear him when he asked him to bring Bishop into the church while he unloaded the vehicle. Our family's pain is only worsened knowing that children continue to die in hot cars, despite the fact that there is technology to prevent it. Nearly 1,000 children have died in hot cars in the United States since 1990. The Hot Cars Act is a federal bill that would require readily available technology in all new vehicles to detect children trapped inside and alert the driver and others. The need for this life-saving legislation is urgent. Life would be so different today for our entire family if there would have been an alert that precious little Bishop had been left in the car. For this reason, I call upon Congress to include the Hot Cars Act in the major transportation bill that without delay to save innocent lives and avoid any more families having to endure the lifelong horror of grief that ours and so many other families have encountered. Please help us turn our pain into power, our tragedy into triumph, and our agony into positive action. We all have a God-given right, responsibility, and reason to protect our children. They cannot protect themselves. Thank you.
Norm, thank you so much. I hope this is the last time that we have to ask you to join us to tell your story. This legislation must be enacted. I'd now like to welcome Russ Swift, who is the co-chair of Parents Against Tired Truckers, also known as PAT. His long journey as a truck safety advocate began after the death of his son, Jason, in 1993. In the years since, PAT has provided a crucial voice in support of common sense upgrades to reduce the annual toll of 5,000 people being killed in truck crashes every year. Russ, thank you so much for joining us today.
It's my pleasure to be here. not necessarily a pleasure, but my responsibility to be here. Good afternoon. My name is Russ Swift. I'm the co-chair of Parents Against Tired Truckers, or PAT as we're known. We comprise half of the Truck Safety Coalition, along with Citizens for Reliable and Safe Highways, CRASH. On the 10th of October, 93, we were watching the news about a truck crash on the main turnpike, where a tired trucker had fallen asleep on the wheel, drifted down to the breakdown lane and run over a vehicle with 5 teenagers in it. 4 of the teenagers were killed and 1 of them was severely injured. We felt heartbroken and couldn't imagine how those families would feel to have lost their child. 4 days later, that happened to us. 4 days from now, that can happen to you. Our 23-year-old son, Jason, died a violent death early in the morning on a dark road because of a breathtakingly bad judgment by a 17-year-old truck driver. Yes, 17 years old. Very early that morning, Jason and his fellow Marine, Dustin, were driving to work at a Marine base in California. The semi-truck had attempted an illegal U-turn and was stuck across both lanes of the highway. Jason and Dustin's car collided with the center of the trailer, which did not have underride guards. They both died instantly. The 17-year-old driver had a learner's permit from California, while the legal owner-operator was asleep in the berth. This crash happened in Nevada. The truck was not authorized to operate in interstate commerce, did not maintain mandatory logbooks, had not complied with the hours of service regulations, and did not have the minimum insurance required. It is incomprehensible to me that Congress is yet considering legislation allowing 18 to 20-year-olds to get behind the wheel of a massive 80,000-pound 18-wheeler on our interstate highways. Drivers 18 to 20 that are currently allowed to operate intrastate have crash rates that are 4 to 6 times higher than those mature truck drivers. As the age of the truck driver decreases, involvement rates in large crashes increase. Truck drivers under the age of 19 are 4 times more likely to be involved in fatal crashes, and drivers from 19 to 20 are 6 times more likely to be involved in fatal crashes. The Federal Motor Carrier Administration has been on the record for many years that there is no proof that the safety performance of younger drivers would be sufficiently close to that of older, more mature drivers. Many rental agencies refuse to rent vehicles to drivers under 23. Why would we want them driving 80,000-pound trucks on our interstate highways? Driving a tractor trailer in the United States is the most dangerous profession there is at any age. Rather than taking realistic steps to make truck driving safer for truck drivers and the motoring public, the industry fully disregards safety risks by trying to put teens at the wheel of massive rigs on our interstates. Truck crash deaths and injuries have increased nearly 50% since 2009. Over 5,000 people were killed and 159,000 more injured in truck crashes in 2019 alone. This is a terrible idea. Teen truckers will make our roads more unsafe, not safer. I thank you, and we've been doing this for 30 years, and we'll do it for another 30 years if it takes that long to get these required changes done. Thank you again.
Russ, thanks for your long-term advocacy, and I certainly hope that is not the case, but I really we all appreciate everything that you have done over the years. Thank you. I'd now like to introduce Sam Lesh. Sam is the Senior Legislative and Policy Representative for the International Brotherhood of Teamsters. Advocates has been very proud to partner with the Teamsters on many shared safety priorities, including large truck safety and the safe and responsible deployment of autonomous vehicles, also known as AVs. Thank you, Sam, for being with us here today and for providing your perspective.
Thank you, Kathy, and thank you to all the advocates who have had to suffer a tremendous amount in order to be here and be a part of this difficult process. I'm Sam Lesh with the Teamsters Union. Teamsters have over 1.4 million members across the country, including nearly 700,000 members who directly drive for a living. Provisions like these that govern the rules of the road indicate how they are going to be able to work and whether they are going to be able to work safely every day. The roads are a member's office place. That's where they show up. That's where they take their lunch breaks. That is where they spend all day, sometimes all night, working in order to make a paycheck to provide for their families. Our biggest priority is to make sure that they can get home safely at the end of the day. And provisions like the Drive Safe Act, provisions like the Halls Act, we think would be catastrophic for their ability to do that going forward. I'm here to convey a clear message from General President Hoffa to the rest of our senior executive leadership. If the Drive Safe Act and the Halls Act are included and added to the Senate Commerce Bill tomorrow at the markup, the Teamsters will oppose that entire title. This is a crucial set of issues for our membership. Our members are not typically thought of as working in the agricultural space, but we have thousands of members who haul dairy, who haul feed for livestock, and anything that would jeopardize or increase the work hours to not some small level of a work day, but would have a monumental increase in the amount of hours that drivers would have to be on the road. We're talking 16, 17, 18 hours a day that you would have to be driving, not to mention all the work you do outside of the truck as a truck driver, refueling, loading, unloading, washing, interfacing with customers, filling out paperwork is all part of your entire workday that isn't even counted as some of the most strenuous work that you do. Any provisions that would increase the hours for those kinds of members, we think is a backward step for safety, is a backward step for our members, and would see vigorous opposition from our union to allowing this bill to move forward. Appreciate you all convening this, and happy to take any questions in the future.
Thanks so much, Sam. You know, I went on a ride along in a big rig a couple of years ago, and what you said is absolutely true. At the end of one day, and I wasn't even driving, the wait time, the paperwork, the sitting in the parking lots, waiting for the trucks to be loaded and unloaded. It's a grueling day, and that was just one day. And your members do this day after day, and they really are heroes on our highways who deliver needed goods. And we want to make sure that the roads are safe for the truck drivers who are members of the labor union and all truck drivers and all of us who share the roads with them. So these provisions have got to be stopped. Teen truckers is just a horrible idea, and expanding any hours of service limitations, which are already generously excessive, it just needs to stop. So thank you so much for joining us today, Sam. I'd now like to turn to Andy Warner. Andy and his wife, Liz, live in Littleton, Colorado. Following the unthinkable loss of their daughter, Taylor Grace, in 2010, the Warners turned their pain towards safety advocacy, urging for enactment of the Modernizing Seatback Safety Act, which directs the U.S. Department of Transportation to update a long overdue safety standard. Andy, thanks so much for joining us today and sharing your story.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Kathy. I appreciate the nice introduction. Liz is with the kids doing some other stuff today, so she's not with me. But like Kathy said, my name is Andrew Warner, and we lost our daughter, Taylor Grace, when she was almost 17 months old. We were rear-ended by an intoxicated or distracted driver when we were in Houston. We were coming home from a holiday party where we had put together toys and donations for underprivileged kids, underprivileged families that really couldn't have a nice holiday. Little did we know that night that our little girl wasn't going to live to see her second birthday. Coincidentally, tomorrow would have been her 12th birthday, so happy birthday. The seatback failure, or the seatback standard that caused our daughter's death, is almost 54 years old. We chose the vehicle that we've got because we thought it was safe. The Honda Odyssey that we had was said, it's got the highest safety standards. It meets every requirement for families. Yet, because the government has failed to modernize the seatback standards, parents like us are putting their kids, their children, their babies at risk every day by doing what the government recommends, putting their babies in the back seat. Recently, we learned that the Department of Transportation has studied this issue and found that countless infants, toddlers, children have been seriously injured or killed since the standard hasn't been updated. In 2019, career experts in the federal government said a fix would cost less than $5 per seat, so less than a cup of coffee at Starbucks, or what it costs to wash your car. Senator Markey and Blumenthal have a bill that will finally modernize the standard, and we are excited to hear that it was part of the highway bill. When we learned that the Senate highway bill fails to require a fix, we were shocked. It's not a complicated idea to use existing government research to try and fix a problem that affects everybody and that everybody knows. Anything less than requiring a modernized seatback standard is saying to all those families who have suffered this loss and who are suffering, that the suffering was for nothing. It says to the families who will experience preventable injuries and deaths, your future suffering does not matter. The Senate can modernize the seatback standard to spare other families from this tragedy and go through what we had to suffer. They should do this quickly. Thank you so much for your time.
Andy, thank you so much for joining us today and for sharing what happened to your daughter and your family. It's just unbelievable that it's taken the federal government, more than 50 years to update this standard. This has got to be changed in this legislation. I'd
Thank
now
you so
like
much,
to.
Kathy.
Oh, thanks, Andy. Thank you. Our next speaker is Jason Levine, who has served as the Executive Director for the Center for Auto Safety since August 2017. A tireless advocate for consumer rights, Jason leads the center's efforts to improve vehicle safety, quality, and fuel economy on behalf of all drivers, passengers, and pedestrians. Jason is also a board member of Advocates. Jason, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me, Kathy. As Kathy mentioned, my name is Jason Levine. I'm the Executive Director of the Center for Auto Safety. People like Andy and his wife, Liz, are why we get up and come to work every day. I want to thank you, Andy, and all the victim advocates here today with the courage to share their stories in order to protect others and have them not join a club that no one wants to be a part of. Today, we're here to talk about the vehicle safety bill and specifically the Surface Transportation Investment Act. The STIA was introduced at a moment when car crash deaths are on the rise, with more than 100 Americans killed every day, either in a vehicle or when they're hit by one. At the same time, amazing safety technology exists to prevent a momentary mistake from becoming a permanent tragedy. We need to get that technology into cars, and we need to do it quickly. The STIA deserves some recognition because it is good to see the Senate formally acknowledge that car crash deaths in the United States are a problem. And admitting a problem is the first step on the road to solving it. However, just saying the words is only the first step on a long journey. Too often, unfortunately, the STIA chooses words over action. Fortunately, at least one instance, the STIA does recognize the potential for improved technology and new standards to play an important role in safety by requiring the use of advanced technology to address the more than 10,000 deaths every year associated with impaired driving. Unfortunately, with respect to almost all other vehicle safety issues, the bill falls short. Requiring reports is not the same as requiring rules. Mandating studies is not the same as mandating performance standards. Just using the word recall 31 times does not actually end the sale of dangerous used cars with unrepaired recalls, like faulty ignition switches, bad brakes, or defective airbags. To achieve the safety benefits of crash avoidance technology, performance standards with deadlines are necessary. Driver monitoring systems that can tackle distracted and automation complacent driving must be prioritized and accelerated, not relegated exclusively to the realm of research. As these types of technology have become commonplace in the European Union, it is not a coincidence that their car crash death rate has fallen dramatically, even as ours has risen. One section of the bill appears to address the need to modernize the seatback safety standard that Andy talked about that was written during the administration of Lyndon Baines Johnson. Yet upon further inspection, the bill fails to require any update at all to the standard that is repeatedly proven to be inadequate. 54 years of performance standard pretending that a lawn chair is safe enough to be protective in a rear crash has meant 5 decades of catastrophic suffering. In 2019, career staff of the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration published research with potential solutions that would cost less than $5 a seat. Senators Markey and Blumenthal introduced a bill requiring a final rule to address seatback failures, killing and maiming children and adults. The Surface Bill removed that requirement, leaving seatback safety in the 60s. The STIA could improve vehicle safety in America for a generation. We hope the Senate improves the bill in order to travel that path. Thank you for your time.
Jason, your remarks, as usual, were spot on. These common sense regulations have got to be brought over the finish line. We are not content with more reports and studies. And as you said so aptly, just including a word in a bill does not mean that there's action. We need our members of Congress to walk the walk. I'd now like to turn to Dr. Deanna Wathington. Dr. Wathington is a public health practitioner and family physician. She is a fellow of the American Academy of Family Physicians, currently serves as the executive board chair for the American Public Health Association, and is also a board member of Advocates. Dr. Wathington, thanks so much for taking time to join us today.
Thank you, Kathy, for inviting me. I'm honored to lend my voice in support to this. Good afternoon. I want to thank Senator Blumenthal, our panel of safety activists, the brave victim advocates who are here with us today, calling on Congress to advance comprehensive safety standards for cars and trucks in the transportation legislation now being debated by Congress. Throughout the country, doctors, nurses, and other healthcare professionals are on the receiving end of the outcomes of violent crashes happening on our roadways. We treat the victims of motor vehicle and truck crashes caused by distracted driving, impaired driving, speeding, drowsy driving, and other dangerous and deadly behaviors. And way too often, we have to tell their loved ones that they did not survive. I am participating in this event today because just like we are putting shots in arms to prevent disease right now, we can put safety tech in cars to prevent crashes. As firsthand witnesses to the carnage caused by crashes, the medical and public health community has long stood for common sense motor vehicle safety improvements. Over the years, vaccines for reducing crash fatalities and injuries have included shoulder and lap safety belts, airbags, roof crush standards, and electronic stability control, just to name a few. In fact, more than 600,000 lives were saved because of these and other safety improvements between 1960 and 2012, according to the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration. Today, we are calling on Congress to advance next-gen safety technologies, including advanced driver assistance, systems for new cars and trucks, and the other improvements discussed by my fellow speakers. Doctors, nurses, and other public health professionals are always seeking and using the most modern, effective equipment and tools to save lives. We would never withhold an available cure or treatment from a sick patient. The same practice must apply to motor vehicle safety. It's time for Congress to swiftly advance proven life-saving remedies. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Wathington. Our next speaker is Jenna Frost, who joins us from Lyman, Maine. Jenna is a volunteer activist with the Truck Safety Coalition to raise awareness about the dangerous gaps in truck safety rules and regulations. Tragically, her 5-year-old son, Wyatt, was killed in a crash involving a box truck in 2016. Her story highlights the need for proven crash avoidance technology in all trucks, not just large commercial vehicles. Jenna, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. I'm here today to lend my support to requiring that automatic emergency braking, or AEB, be required on all trucks, no matter what size. The Senate bill includes a carve out for delivery and box trucks. These trucks are dangerous and deadly. My son Wyatt was 5 years old when he was killed by a box truck that was not equipped with AEB. He was such a gentle soul. He found awe and wonder in what most people take for granted. He could spend an hour watching an ant crawl across the floor and loved every kind of animal. Most of all, he was always happy. He brought joy to everyone. He was also a big brother. I had just had my second child, Scarlett, 5 months before. On November 18th, 2016, Wyatt was having a typical school day. He woke up early to tell my husband, Aaron, that he loved him as Aaron was leaving for work. Then later that morning, as Wyatt was preparing to leave for school, he decided that he wanted to take his stuffed Rudolph, little reindeer. My last memory of Wyatt was strapping him in his car seat and putting Rudolph in his lap, and I gave him a kiss and I told him goodbye. But I had no idea that goodbye was going to be forever. Sorry. Earl Gray was a retired gentleman who volunteered to drive Wyatt to and from school, as there was not a bus that went to Wyatt's school from our area. Earl had become Wyatt's friend and our friend. His death in this crash was a huge loss to the community. Friday afternoon, Earl and Wyatt had not arrived home yet. Aaron had taken off from work early to come home and play with Wyatt. We called the school and they had confirmed that he had left. We called Earl and Earl's contacts and no one could reach him. Then we heard that there was a bad crash on the interstate, and Aaron drove out to see if they were stuck in traffic. Aaron parked his car on an overpass and went down the line of stopped cars looking for Earl and Wyatt. When he arrived at the front of the line of stopped traffic, one of the firemen told him that Earl and Wyatt were no longer with us. The scene was horrific. The box truck had forced Earl's car into the rear of the semi in front of them, and then the box truck smashed Earl's car as it drove up on top of it. Neither Wyatt nor Earl had any chance against such a big truck bearing down on them. The rest of the day and the months that followed were a constant nightmare. We couldn't even bear to return to our house, and we lived with my parents for the next month. Caring for our new baby was a constant reminder of what we had just lost, and everything became unbearable and overwhelming. The facts of the crash kept invading my mind. And how could such a thing happen? Don't they bother to train or supervise truck drivers? My son and Earl were driving northbound behind a semi-truck on Interstate 95 when they had to slow and stop due to heavy traffic. Behind them in a truck, driver in a Class 6 medium-duty truck failed to stop and instead slammed into and drove up on top of Earl's car. We later learned that the driver of the box truck that killed my son lied on his DOT medical exam. The truck driver was diabetic and insulin dependent, something that should have taken his commercial driver's license away. My mind kept thinking a stranger who was not qualified for his job should have never been behind the wheel of that truck that killed my son with the truck. Who was responsible for failing in the oversight of truckers and allowing crashes like this to happen? I am here today for my son Wyatt. This November will be 5 years since Wyatt was senselessly killed, and I learned last week that the people we rely on to protect us are once again failing miserably in their job. We now have the technology to make sure that if drivers fail to apply brakes when they should, a truck can apply them automatically with automatic emergency braking, or AEB. Unfortunately, the Senate Bill S 2016, the Surface Transportation Investment Act of 2021, which will be taken up tomorrow by the Senate Commerce, Science and Transportation Committee, doesn't require all trucks to have the safety device. Special trucking interests don't want to spend the money to put it on all trucks, even though the cost of this technology has an estimated at non-retail cost of less than $300. That means that trucks like the one that killed Wyatt and the millions of delivery trucks that are on the interstate and driving around our cities, towns, and residential areas to make deliveries will not have to adopt this proven and reliable life-saving technology. My daughter, Scarlett, will never really have her brother, Wyatt, but she knows who he is. We keep a photo of Wyatt and Earl on our hutch each night, and as we turn off the hutch light, we tell Wyatt how much we love him and how much we miss him. Scarlett turned 5 years old today. She cries sometimes and she wishes that she could have her brother with her. And it breaks my heart when she asks if she can go to heaven to play with him. If Wyatt were here, she says she wouldn't be scared of the dark because he'd be here to protect her. And Wyatt's crash proves that these vehicles are just as deadly as larger trucks. And they number in the hundreds of thousands throughout our neighborhoods at all times of the day. I didn't think my heart could break any more, but this callous piece of legislation is an insult on top of deep grief. Every day and multiple times a day, my husband and I think about Wyatt. We will never stop thinking about the senseless crash on that Friday afternoon. I tell Wyatt's tragic story today in hopes that each of you will remember Wyatt. Please think of him and his smile and his innocence. His innocence that was taken away from this world when decisions like this should have already been made. For other families, including yours, Wyatt's, for me, and for all drivers and passengers on the road, please do whatever is necessary to change the bill to require that all new trucks must be equipped with AEB. I hope Wyatt's story will help save the lives of others in the future. Thank you.
Sorry, Jenna, thank you so much. And we all promise you that we will fight as hard as we can to get these provisions in his memory and in the memory of the Collins family and the Swift family and the Warner family.
Thank you.
Our last speaker today is Joan Claybrook. Joan is a pioneer of auto safety who has been fighting for decades to protect consumers, motorists, and all road users. A founding board member of Advocates, Joan remains an indispensable and indefatigable voice for common sense solutions to prevent crashes, fatalities, and injuries. Joan, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much. I'm really honored to be here with these wonderful families, with advocates, and with the Senators Blumenthal and Markey, who are the best, the very best consumer champions. And they are fighting against this trucking industry, which is trying to push for no improvements in trucks or minimal improvements in trucks, despite the fact that they would make such a difference in saving lives, and they cost so little. And I'm happy to be here as well with the other consumer champions, public health, safety, and labor representatives. So this is really an important press conference to try and outline why we need these safety provisions. Unfortunately, we're holding this event today rather than seizing a ready opportunity to reduce the traffic toll and crashes. But the Senate Commerce Committee has a bill introduced. It's called the Senate Transportation Investment Act of 2001, S2016, that does not deliver on the critical safety needed for public protection. Congress only considers a major surface transportation bill every 5 years ago. This chance to vitally improve safety improvements should not be squandered. What we need to do really is to put AEB, or automatic emergency brakes, on the influence of the trucking industry on members of Congress. It's really disgusting and outrageous that they're responding to those trucking companies. For example, crash avoidance technologies like automatic emergency braking, the lane departure, and blind spot detection must be required on all new cars and trucks. It would make a tremendous difference to the future of so many families in this country. However, the current Senate Commerce Committee bill limits the AEB only to the biggest, heaviest trucks, and with no safety requirements for smaller delivery type trucks, the trucks that we just heard about. And they don't include a deadline for AEB or automatic emergency brakes on cars. With small to medium-sized delivery trucks whizzing through our neighborhoods with children, pedestrians, bicyclists, and other vulnerable road users all over the country, it's no surprise that their share of the fatalities and crashes has been on the rise every year from 2016 until last year to 2019, the latest year for which we have data. Additionally, the drivers of these trucks are not required to have any special training or a commercial driver's license called a CDL. The additional protections AEB provides would help to mitigate these dangers of not having trained drivers. Thus, any licensed driver today, regardless of your age or your physical condition, can be hired to drive these smaller trucks with no training or license requirements, special ones. Based on research from the Insurance Institute for Highway Safety, automatic emergency brakes could prevent approximately 1 million passenger vehicle crashes and more than 450,000 injuries in these crashes each year. That's astounding. Additionally, the automatic emergency brakes on the largest trucks could mitigate as many as 87,000 front to rear crashes. Considering that in 2019, 20% of all fatalities and almost half of all injuries in truck crashes in 2018 involve small to medium-sized truck known as class 3 to 6 trucks. The automatic emergency brake requirement in these trucks would result in significant crash and fatality reductions. And the pain that comes from these crashes we've heard about today, it's overwhelming. The costs for the technology are also minimal. A new class 6 truck can cost about $90,000. The U.S. Department of Transportation determined that the cost per vehicle of adding AEB to a new truck would add a non-retail cost of less than $300. That amounts to 0.3% of the cost of the truck. Nothing. In addition to pushing for improvements in the bill, we are pushing back on other anti-safety provisions. Efforts to weaken or provide exemptions to truck driver hours of service rules, which would exacerbate the well-known issue of truck driver fatigue, which causes so many crashes and injuries and deaths, and to permit teen truckers to drive 80,000-pound rigs across the country must be opposed. Truck drivers under the age of 19 are 4 times more likely to be involved in fatal crashes, and truck drivers between the ages of 19 and 20 are 6 times more likely to be involved in fatal crashes. These anti-safety provisions must be stopped. You know, the trucking industry was responsible for 5,000 deaths and 154,000 injuries last year. And the solutions are simple, as we've been discussing. But instead of attacking the problem, they attack the safety solutions. And this is why the Senate bill is so deficient that is coming up tomorrow. All truck crashes are devastating to families, with fatalities and serious injuries resulting from almost every crash. Safety must be and can be improved and should not be undercut. So in conclusion, the dangers on our highways are well documented, the solutions are well proven, and it is well past time to take action. I urge Congress to advance effective and inexpensive solutions to save lives without delay. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Joan. I think it's clear from this panel, who all come from different perspectives and experiences, how passionately we feel about the need to make these safety advances in this bill tomorrow and in the House bill in the upcoming weeks. We would like to conclude by urging Congress to make these common sense safety improvements. Now is the time to do this, to stop the pain and suffering of families. I would now like to, we're glad to entertain any questions from members of the media and through the chat box, as I mentioned at the beginning of our session today. Tara or Pete, it's my understanding there aren't any in the chat box right now. Is that still the case?
Kathy, that's correct. We have no questions from press at this time.
Okay, well then I'd just like to, we're coming up at the end of the hour anyway, and we need to get back to work to keep fighting these anti-safety provisions and pushing for improvements. You can see a list of them again on our website, which is saferoads.org. And I urge everyone who's tuned in today to reach out to your members of Congress and tell them that you want these safety improvements. They will listen to you. That is their job. Again, it's saferoads.org. And if anyone, any member of the media would like an individual interview with any of our panelists, again, please feel to reach out to our comms director, Pete Daniels, at pdaniels@saferoads.org. We'd be more than glad to talk to the media. And I just would like to conclude by thanking our wonderful panel today. I know this was not easy for you to share your stories, and I hope that everyone who tuned in today was motivated to take action and to bring these proven solutions across the finish line.
Kathy, I'd just like to say that for people who don't know, the telephone number for the U.S. Capitol is 202-224-3121. That is for the United States Senate, 202-224-3121. And you can call and just ask for your member of Congress and ask to speak with them. There'll be a lot of resistance to putting you through to the member, but if so, then just ask to speak to the top aide or to the appointment secretary. And that's really important for members to get these calls. Thank you.
Thanks, Joan.
Hi, I have a question. It's Laura Cromaldi.
Yes, Laura, go ahead with your question. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, guys. Hi, everyone. Hi, Joan.
Hello.
Is there any indication that President Biden, with his personal experience with the truck crash tragedy, will advocate for the measures that you're pushing for?
His administration is very aware of our positions. And I know, of course, as the president had lost his wife and his young daughter in a large truck crash, and he's one of the most empathetic people, one of the most empathetic presidents. I would think that he will be supportive of our efforts, but we're in touch with the administration and advocating as hard as we can. And we will see what happens in this process. Joan, would you like to add anything to that?
Well, I think that it's also important for people to call the White House. The phone number for the switchboard at the White House is 202-456-1414, and ask the president to push for truck safety and these other improvements.
Okay, and my next thing is, and I acknowledge this is totally self-serving, but at the Globe, we the story that we did last year about truck safety was just honored with the Pulitzer Prize for investigative reporting on Friday. And how can you use the recognition given to that report to advance your agendas? I know we didn't write about some of these technology things. It was more about the bureaucracy, but.
Well, first, congratulations. We were very aware of your award, and it was well earned and well deserved. And we were very glad to work with you and your team, providing information and preparation for it. And any kind of wonderful media coverage that brings attention to the need to advance truck safety and to stop these attacks, these teen truckers, these agricultural exemptions from hours of service. It's priceless to get that attention on a national level. So I applaud you. I encourage you to keep up the great work, because the American public needs to know what is happening on our roads. These are not accidents. These are preventable crashes. And as a number of us have said today, if there's advanced driver assistance systems like automatic emergency braking required in all new trucks, it will save thousands of lives. We have the technology. It's inexpensive. It needs to be required. So Laura, thank you again for your hard work, and congratulations on your accolade, and please keep up the good work.
Thank you. Thank you for your kind words. And I just want to thank you for all that help, especially Joan, who helped us with these stories, and advocates, and you played a large role in getting us here.
No, I think this is the first time that there's been such an award for a specific story on truck safety. I don't know whether it is or not, but I think it is. And that is remarkable because a lot of people yawn when they, talk about the bureaucracy and all the rest of it, things like this. So it was a fabulous set of articles, and so so we're really honored to be part of it.
Kathy, this is Pete speaking up. We have another question from Streets Blog asking why it's critical to include NCAP reforms and why those reforms should include pedestrian crash mitigation evaluation in addition to the changes to FMVSS that we're advocating for.
I'll answer that quickly, but then I will turn it over to Joan Claybrook as she created the system, the first one in the world. I would like to say that NCAP, as the program is formerly known as, or Stars on Cars, was created as a motivator for automakers to include advanced technologies to make our roads safer, to make cars safer. Unfortunately, our NCAP, the US NCAP, has fallen woefully behind many other countries, and it needs to be, it needs incredible updating. In addition to the updates for NCAP, though, we need the regulations. We need the regulations to get this technology into cars as standard equipments with minimum performance standards. Because right now, they're being upcharged or they're in luxury cars, and not everyone can afford it. So we need the combination of improvements to NCAP and the need for minimum performance standards for proven safety technologies. And with that, I'll ask Joan if she could answer the question as well.
Well, NCAP is intended to push the auto companies to make their cars better than the minimum safety standard. And they're generally based on a minimum safety standard, but they're tougher. And so some companies do a better job, some companies don't. And NCAP is a testing program, a technical testing program that measures this. And then it's required that the results of those tests be on the price sticker in every new car, which means that we don't have to ask the auto dealers to make this information available. It's automatically there on the price sticker. And it's very helpful to consumers doing comparison shopping, trying to see which vehicle they want and what companies are doing a better job than the others. After the NCAP was created in the United States about 20 years later, it was picked up by the EU, and it's since been picked up by 13 other countries across the world. And they have far outpaced what we're doing in the United States because our program was never funded. And a terrific effort in 2015 under President Obama to upgrade it never went through. And so it's just way out of date, and it's really sad, and it should be upgraded.
Peter, Tara, are there any other questions from the media?
None currently, Kathy.
Okay. Well, thank you everyone for tuning in. Thank you especially to everyone who spoke today, who shared their stories and their expertise and their vantage points. And it's time for us to get back to work, to push as hard as we can. Oh, and Senator Blumenthal, thank you so much for coming back.
And I have been listening, and I will tell you, I was moved, especially by the folks who have suffered loss. I just want to thank all of you. Jenna, the last story, I'm glad I didn't have to speak after you, but that is really so powerful. I really want to thank you and all the other advocates who are also victims. So thank you very much, Kathy, and thanks for the great work done by your organization. And to Laura, well deserved. Keep in touch.
Kathy, can we send this video to every member of the Senate Commerce Committee?
Yes, and this video, thank you for prompting me, Joan. The video will be on our website. It's, as I announced at the beginning, it's being recorded. It will be on saferoads.org. And Joan, I'll see if we technically can do that. I'm not quite sure to answer your question, but we'll look into it.
I don't know technology. Sure. I presume it can be.
Senator, thank you again. We're going to be pushing hard and supporting everything you do.
Thank you.
And thank you all again for joining us today for this important press conference.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for having us.